Hello and welcome to this rather fabulous short explanatory video. I am just going to tell you a little bit more about how you can make change work for you, take control of your life, be able to make those dreams and those goals a reality in a lovely way, in an abundant way, instead of it feeling like this whole massive roller coaster. The reality of our life is, I think they say that there's two, but I think there are three certainties in life. One is birth, the other is death, and the final one is change. And there are big, huge changes that go on, and then there are little tiny changes. But ultimately, we are here to live our lives in the best way we know how. And I think sometimes we can get a bit stuck and we can lose sight of what we want out of life. Either that, or we're so busy striving for certain things that we get exhausted and we lose sight of what else is going on. So after many years of helping people make healthy eating changes, and also working as an auditor and dealing with a lot of change and the consequences of change in big organizations and how draining and how stressful that can be, and coaching people through various big massive changes, or even helping them deal with change that's happened in their past, I realised that change is something I'm really passionate about. I love it. I love making changes in my life, and I have learned about how to control that flow and that pace and to have that downtime. But I also love I just love the flow and the kind of the pace of change, and I love to see how we're doing. It's just one of those things. My mom says that she really struggles with change, and she finds it bizarre that her child loves change. But there you go. So I want to introduce you to a couple of sort of little things. I'm just going to share my screen. Here we go. So I very briefly mentioned the fact that I love change, and that I view change in sort of three phases, if you like. And I think once we start to think about it in this way, it helps us almost make peace with it and to be able to work better with that flow of change. So I've spoken about dreams and goals and desires, and I really think that that's about us creating change in our life. So that can be things like having a new job, it can be becoming self-employed, it can be changing our bodies, it can be having a family, having a relationship. It's all those changes. And as like I said, they can be big or small, but ultimately this is about us having dreams and creating change in our life. But within that, we need to have resilience to change, because lots of things are going to happen that are outside our control. If we're not looking after ourselves, if we're not prioritizing what's going on in our lives, then we haven't got that resilience to be able to respond to the change that's going to happen in our lives. And that becomes an out of control feeling. So this is all about us mastering that flow. And finally, I talk about adapting to change as the third phase. And ultimately, when we're making changes or when we're dealing with changes, wait a minute, I'm just going to stop sharing screen now. How do I do that? Bear with me a second. Stop share. So when we do that and we're adapting to change, this is about having downtime. This is about resetting and reflecting on what's been going on, whether that's change that's happening that's kind of outside our control, like for example being made redundant, or whether that's change that we're creating. And the thing is, this all flows and balances together, and it's why it's really important to be mindful of change as a whole and not just trying to do one thing over here. So what I've created, which is so exciting, I can't believe it really, well I can because it's just me, is the Change Makers Framework, which is awesome. So this is a tool that you can use to help you navigate those three phases of change. So if I go back to sharing my screen again, here we go. This is the change makers framework. Woohoo! So basically, I'm just going to talk you through it very briefly. So at the core of us being able to deal with change and to have that resilience to change is that we need to be in a real strong, healthy position ourselves. We need to make sure we keep track of and we are maintaining our self-care, and also that we're tackling what's going on in our head, and we have a certain approach to change, and we change the way we have this like positive focused mindset, if you like. Now within this, it may be when you come to think about your thoughts and what's going on and what you're telling yourself, the story, the way that you're approaching things, and also when it comes to things like looking after yourself, your health, your well-being, it could be that you identify things that you need to change within that. So it's kind of like a two-pronged thing, if you like. This helps us to build that resilience to change so that, you know, we can handle anything that comes along. And there's a lot to do with being able to maintain that whilst we're creating other changes and adapting to change. So that's why it's at the core of this model. So basically, let's move on to vision. Vision is so key, especially when we want to create change in our life. And this is about really identifying what we want out of life, what's really, really important for us. It's those big dreams, it's those big goals. And what this framework does is it helps us realise that and really understand what that means to us and how that is part of what we want as a family, if we're part of a family unit as well, because it's not always just us. So that helps us to be able to really think about, well, what do I want my life to be? What do I want it to look like? How do I want to feel about my life? But then you see, what we need to do is really start to distill that down into something that we can actually do. Because a lot of the time we have a big vision and then it can feel really overwhelming, or, you know, we're not noticing the progress that we're making towards that really big vision. But if we distill it down and we look at what components, if you like, of what we want to do and how we want to take that action, that makes a really big difference to us actually being able to make these changes. So one of the things I use as an example is you might have the vision of an absolutely amazing job you really, really want. You hate your current job. You want this really like amazing job. But the thing that you need certain steps to get there. Well, when you start to look at those steps, it's like, well, actually, you know what? I can do this now. I can go and get another qualification. Now, at the same time, when we come back to making sure we're in a good mindset and looking after ourselves, it's then looking at how we deal with the current environment and the things that are annoying us and all of that, so that we can make that change. The same applies if, for example, you really want, like I have, to grow a fabulous business. You may, in order to do that, you may have to take other little steps first to be able to achieve that vision. And that real identification of that vision and that draw really helps you to be able to do that. And it moves us neatly on to plan and declutter. This is about, we've got a finite amount of time in our lives. And so often we try to sort of build all this change in. And also this is where, when we've got change going on, we do all this fabulous stuff and then we just can't do it all. We become exhausted, back to mindset and self-care. And we literally can't do it. And this is a section where we're going to actually distill down our vision and really plan and prioritize what's important and what we're going to do. And it's where we look at the components of that vision and we declutter the time that we've got now. The other thing within this as well, which is really, really important, is to be aware of those conflicts or those interdependencies, if you like. So, you know, you can't, having one vision and one goal here and one here, you might need this to happen before this, or, you know, you might be creating a conflict in the way that you've phrased a goal. So it might be, I want to go and travel around the Antarctica whilst having a baby. Well, those two goals are not complementary to each other at the same time. So then it's like, okay, so actually the first thing I want to do is I want to go go to the Antarctic, and then I want to have a baby. So this is what we're going to do. This is that sort of planning and decluttering stage. The next bit, which is really important, is our action. So this is about us taking the action, planning, and considering what we've already done so far. You know, the way that we can achieve our vision is by taking action, but it's taking action with the consideration of how we look after ourselves, our strength of mindset, and what else is going on in our life. So we're not just doing it in isolation. So this means that you're so much more likely to succeed in what you're doing. And then finally, within the lovely Changemakers framework, is reflection. So often we're moving towards our vision and we are making progress, but we're not noticing that progress, or things need tweaking and changing. So for example, I have a brilliant vision for my future, which then has been tweaked since I got married. I mean, admittedly, my vision did include being married, but it has been slightly tweaked and it's grown and it's evolved. And the other thing is, you know, you celebrate here, you really celebrate what you've been achieving, and that way you can really see that your action is paying dividends. It's not always about the outcome, and part of this is actually recognizing that you have put effort in and going, yay, I've put effort in, and learning what isn't quite working as well. So once you know what isn't quite working, then you can make tweaks and changes. And this is, you know, taking out failure. This is creating a positive mindset around change. So let me just come back. How do I, let me just, oh, I just lost, here we go, stop share. So hopefully that has given you a nice little whistle stop tour around how you can really make change happen and work in your world, and that's understanding of that kind of flow of change. Think of the sea can be calm, but it's always flowing, and that's what changes. But then, you know, we do have the storms, and that's where we need to really understand what's good for us and really be amazing, because we are amazing. And just give yourself space and time to just have that downtime and to make sure you have got the self-care and the mindset covered. So hopefully that's given you a fabulous outline of the Changemakers framework. If you have any questions, you can find me on Facebook. If you type in facebook.com/loveemmasydney, or you can join my fabulous new Facebook group, which is the Changemakers Facebook group, which is a free group where you can have space for that strong, nurturing and practical change that you want to make, and also build that resilience and all of that loveliness. So do get in touch, and I'll speak to you soon.